Hello, this is Lisa Lee, and welcome to this week's enrichment. Not a reading. We're not doing a reading this week. I'm going into a lecture series with you, and the reason we're doing a lecture series is because I want to teach you the technique of channeling that I use for my creative practice. And the reason that I want to teach you that technique is because you follow me. You already know what it is to like hear the process. You see what it is when I channel these enrichment readings every week. And I don't see the value in channeling readings every week if I'm not really teaching you how to channel for yourself. I don't want to be your default connection to the divine. I want to strengthen your skills connecting to the divine. And that's the distinction with my intention here. Now, what does it mean for us to enter into this space? Creativity as a spiritual practice is a sacred space. And so I want those that are engaging with this material to understand that it is the intention set that this is a religious, this is a spiritual practice, and as such, it takes on those qualities alchemically. And I'm going to explain what that means because it's a big part of what your it's a big part of the technique is kind of understanding what the difference between the sacred, the mundane, and the profane is, and what it means to enter into a sacred space. Because channeling, and there's a difference between performing and channeling. You know, the actor who gets the Oscar award and they're standing, up at receiving their award. It's because when they were in the movie, you did not see the actor. You only saw that the divine, animating a story. You didn't know that you were looking at Katniss. Sorry, you didn't know you were looking at Jennifer, whatever her name is. You were looking at Katniss. You lose the actor when somebody is channeling. Right? And so that is a transcendent form of art. And you can tell when an art is transcendent, it resonates, it feels transcendent. And you can tell when art is contrived. It's a little different with the internet era. There's lots of deep fakes, and those deep fakes have existed not just because of AI. Those deep fakes have existed in chameleons, performance is always kind of there as a counterbalance to the real. And so, what are we going to do with that? Well, we're going to first talk about all the nuts and bolts, and we're going to enter this as a spiritual practice because that's what, otherwise, this is the video. This is what we're doing. Holy art. We're going to do some holy art. So when I talk about what holy art is, when I'm teaching you how to channel, that's not performance. Okay. And so one of the first things that you need to understand is you have to be able to look at performance and say, performance, goodbye, in order to have access, the key that goes into the door that offers you that divine channeling, that channeling ability that transcends your normal skill set, that has a transcendent cathartic quality. Again, it's a flow state. And it's not like having the right or the wrong belief. It's how you interact with belief and how you bring that truth into what you're creating, and how you bring that through you. And so I'm just going to teach you my technique. And everything works differently for everybody, but part of what it is to be in community, to share what it is to operate in your purpose, is to do this kind of authentic expression. And again, I'm going to teach you your own version of what it means to access that. I hope to. That's my intention. So hopefully hopefully this works for you if you're going to put in the time to hang out with me and do this. And I might use the cards a little bit because I kind of want to show you what channeling is, and divination is a good way of really strengthening that muscle. And divination, if you do it right, is a wholly beautiful practice. Divination, if you do it wrong, is a nightmare kind of malicious sort of manipulation. And so a lot of people don't know or don't have a kind of grasp around what the mechanism of what they are doing is, what the technology of faith that you're using are. And as a result, if there aren't certain transparent things that are explained about the process, I know I'm going to explain about my process and the transparent things that come through for me. And in that way, we can start to develop an ethic that feels safe for people. Okay. So it's like a literacy around divination, because I've been doing this forever. And I know, this is I can give you my expertise. Little sip of water. Don't mind my mess. I'm moving, and I know I'm moving. And I was looking at my mess and thinking, do I have the the muscle to care, and I didn't have the muscle to care. Okay, so I left the mess. And I think that there's something to, when I talk about creativity as a spiritual practice, it's not performance. And so how do you get through that door of the experience of like the Holy Spirit within you, the anointing that kind of comes when you give way to that which is holy, that which is true, that which is the flow state of inspiration. Now, God is inspiration, not drive, not manipulation, not as associated with death, only associated with life. And so like, this is what I have figured out for myself. I'll explain it. But ultimately, when we talk about inspiration and we talk about spirituality as creative practice, we are talking about the inspiration being an anointed force. You know what it feels like when you are like in that prayerful space, and you know what it feels like when you are in a group and they're singing and you're taken by it, and you know what it feels like when you are in the presence of what isn't a performance but is a like an artistic, like it looks like, you know, the movie where you're in the presence of some kind of transcendent moment where it's not the character, it's something else that changes you and moves you, and you're able to have like almost like a born again experience. And so when I say that, it's because I'm trying to point the finger at art and show you that art has the capability, art has always had the capability, kind of the origin of the nature of like the evolution of like what art was and what art is this ability to catch that flow state, those flow states in consciousness, and actually be moved to a greater ground, be moved to an expansion. Now, catching those currents has to do with what you are giving yourself over to. And so it's not just about being able to channel, because that is like the baseline. It's also what you channel, right? Because you have the fire and brimstone preachers who are channeling something. You can see the charisma. Now, charisma is a strong channel. Like what charisma is, definitely as a definition, is a strong channel. You can feel it. It has the power. It moves the room. It comes in and it's in frenzied energy. So somebody is tapping into a storm, and they can like deliver through their body and their voice the energy that they are encountering. So that's like powerful. People feel it's powerful. It's charisma. It has power. But you can channel a demon. You can channel demonic forces. And I'm not using the term in the ancient way that is like the daemon, you know, the inspirer, the divine genius. I'm using the term in the modern way, which is like destructive energies, destructive forces, like forces that are, you know, in a way kind of evil. So we can channel something evil. We can channel into the world and make manifest and give life to in one way or another. An energy and a thought form is trying to take what we have in the way of passion and use it for a purpose that isn't even our own. And so like that's drive, that's conditioning, that's self-abandoning. There's all kinds of ways in which we can show up in life and not be working with divine energies. And so what we create, the ingredients, is not divine thing. And so part of what it is to think about creativity as a spiritual practice, especially in relationship to channeling, is that channeling, that you're with a force of nature that is moving through you in this inspiration. Very important, very, very important for you to get really clear on what you want to channel and what is unworthy of you, what you want to bring into the world and what is unworthy of your vessel, of that channel that you offer, with the experience of, you know, the material world and you being in it, and not self-abandon for any reason, because that's the biggest danger with the power of charisma, is that it's not you driving the car. Oh, I don't even know how that sounds, because this is a little bit messy, but that's okay. So how do you know that the ingredients that you are putting into the ingredients that you are putting into the things that you are creating, how do you know that's good? Because you have the right motivation and you start with the right intentions. And this is hard. Okay, this is kind of a hard thing to do. Now, there are tools for channeling that I think are really useful. And so I'm going to teach you some channeling with the cards. Now, I don't pick up, like picking up the cards for divination, picking up a scripture, going into a trance state. I don't do that willy-nilly. I don't bring, like, there's the mundane, which is like you have to get up in the morning, you gotta brush your teeth, you gotta clothes on, make dinner, you know, that's mundane, you know, clean, vacuum. This is the mundane experience of life. And then there's the profane. I can't believe they did it. It's passionate. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think I understand this correctly. So somebody who's an expert can give you like the literal definitions. But as I am like interacting with, in my understanding, the profane is like almost, it's an imitation of holy in that it has some kind of a charge to it, but it's like essentially kind of disgusting. It's junk food instead of, it's like hot Cheetos, not to like, hot Cheetos are good, whatever. Hot Cheetos instead of like a gorgeous, like beautiful salad with all of the fixings and like the nutrient dense versus what is going to feel like food, but it's going to make you sick. And so the profane stands as like a contrast to the sacred, which is going to be that nutrients and what's going to make you feel good and what is holy, what is life-giving. Think about the sacred as life-giving. Think about the profane as life-taking, and think about the mundane as the balance between the forces of like that which needs to die and that which needs to go and be recycled into the past, and that which needs to be born anew. I don't know how organized this is. I don't know how well this is going to come out. But I'm giving you all this information like right at the start, because channeling is something that if you're doing it as a spiritual practice, if you're making holy art, if you want to have a spiritual influence with what you channel in the way of art, then you cannot get through that door. You cannot go into the altar. You cannot go to the holy place where this kind of encounter is possible with some weird gross agenda. You know what I mean? With some like not like profane or mundane. Why does my cat? Oh, it's my cat. Okay. Life is gonna happen, right? You don't want to go to that. Like you can make art with curses in it. You can make art that is like, got like darkness in it. Like when you think about light, and you think about like dark and shadow and clarity and the process of coming from shadow into clarity, that's where all the definition is. A white piece of paper, and then the ink drawing is the definition. That is the shadow that influences what we see in the way of the light. It's a perspective build, and we make choices about how much we want to bring of one and then the other. Is that horn? Can you hear it? Such a balance in modern day world. It really is. But gosh, I totally lost my place. That's okay. I'm not trying to be professional here. I'm just trying. I'm like the mom or older sister that's kind of coming in and saying, "This is what I know. Sit down." And like, this is not going to be a performance. And so when we move away from performance and we move into spiritual practice and we go into holy art, we know that we are going to the divine and going to divine forces and say, "Please inspire me. I am fertile and I want you to create new life with me. I want you to give me an inspiration that I can bring into the world, and it creates new life, it creates healing, it creates something of substance that is life-giving, that is life-expanding, and it's life-giving and life-expanding because it's in the likeness of the energy that I am connecting with." And so like, that's what I mean when I say prayer and art. That's what I mean when I say divination as a spiritual practice has a certain technology. There are things we can learn about it. It utilizes the substance of belief. And so we don't go into that space willy-nilly. We have to set the intention to make the ingredients. So that's the first little piece of information that I'm going to give you. And so when we set the intention that we are going into a holy space, we are going to bring our holy intention into that space. And that means you're not going there to steal. You're not going there to scavenge for content. You're not going there to self-aggrandize. You're not going there to be in a competition with someone who you admire and you're going to work and oh my God. You're not going there to bring destruction. You're not going there to bring death. Now, what is death and destruction? And the reason I'm saying this is because I want you to be able to make a very big difference in your mind between bringing death and destruction, which I'm going to term them as like the demonic forces of evil, is bringing death and destruction into a picture, into an alchemy, into a conversation, into an encounter, into the work that you do. When you think about your ingredients, are you bringing destruction and death with your ingredients, or are you bringing something nutrient? Right? Like, are you going in to create so that you can make yourself better? Or are you going in to create so you can make the world better? Are you going in to create because you want to discover something about yourself and share that? Or are you going in to create so that you can make something that will get you the attention and the things that you like need because you deserve? You know what I mean? Like, we have some kind of a sickness that we always have to sit there and be like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing it? Like, why Why would I do this to this person who I respect, who's offering me so much? Why would I do this to myself? When it comes to something as sacred as creating with divine forces, like, why am I blocking myself from the door of that genuine channeling experience because I'm having a challenge? You know what I mean? Like, we have to go through the profane and experience the profane and look at the profane and make meaning of it, in a way that, like, attends to it despite, like, a mundane demand schedule. And then we have to create a sacred space where we don't sit before God and be like, and I did, and I, and me, you know what I mean? Like, there's a way in which I want you to kind of recalibrate around, like, creativity as a spiritual practice is spiritual. Spiritual is not, like, the marketplace of selling yourself. Spiritual is not the marketplace of buying something from someone. Spiritual, is something very holy. And so we believe that there's something holy going on. And so something holy comes of that belief in what we create. And I'm going to explain the technology around belief in a minute, because I'm going to teach you the stuff that I know. That's part of what I'm doing. So we're shifting out of enrichment readings and we're shifting into, here's the stuff that I know. This is how I channel. This is how you should channel. Channeling is something where you're going to get, like, that inspiration from God. And when you express in your authentic voice, your authentic voice is praise. Performance is profane. Okay? And so, and I know that sounds like, wait, what do you mean? Because there are forms of praise that embody, like, that make use of performance. That's what an actor is. But but acting, if you're not honest about it, okay, is gonna be deception, right? And so then so we want to think about, like, what am I bringing in the way of ingredients to the people that I want to love and be loved by, to the experience of sharing and belief and what it is to create into the void of everyone's existence, with something that I think is going to bring uplift, right? And so when we enter into a sacred space, we start to think about sacred encounters and what a sacred encounter with others is. Okay, and so we are in the internet age. That means we are separated by a computer screen and miles, and access is not what we think it is, because we have to recalibrate around that. And access is not what it used to be, and we have to recalibrate around that. And what it is to engage with people in a respectful way, we don't even have the rules around it, and we don't even know that it's a thing, because we're all kind of dizzy around what is this encounter, and what does it mean, and how can I invest in it or not invest in it? What does it mean about the quality of my life, and what does it mean to my access to others? Because when we think about the fame and the icon model, which is garbage, it hurts everybody. It's a profane relationship to inspiration when something calls you to a standard that makes you self-abandon, right? So, gosh, I can go on forever in every direction, but I do want to keep this sort of focused. And so the first thing that we're going to do as, like, a practice is a spirituality. We're doing a spiritual practice. The first thing that I want to do as a practice as we enter into this space of talking about what art is in terms of the holy of holies and what it is to procreate with the holy of holies and create holy novel things and, encounter the self in a holy novel way and really step into the power of belief in your life and, like, how that translates to a type of charisma. And that charisma is about channeling, yes, but channeling the right thing and not channeling the wrong thing. You will hurt yourself channeling the wrong thing. I've seen it. I've seen it in people's cards. I know. All right. So instead of hurting yourself, we're not going to do that. You want to find yourself. You don't want to put on masks. Okay. Now, because this is, again, it's a holy spiritual practice. Okay. Now, I get really riled up, because I think that, like, part of what creativity as a spiritual practice should be is very transparent, okay? Because what you are doing when you use the mechanism of belief and when you're making use of belief is actually, like, that charisma is powerful. Your belief in what you're doing and the belief that you bring into giving life to what you're creating has an impact, okay? And so we want to, as part of what creativity as a spiritual practice really is actually bring a vulnerability and a rawness and a realness. Like, we're actively working against performance to do this right. We are actively trying. That performance is conditioning. Be a good girl. Performance is conditioning. Where they hate me. You know what I mean? Like, all that stuff. stuff. Like, so we want to say, in the name of all that is holy, in the name of all that is true, I am connected to the divine. I am offspring of the divine. What I do with the divine is holy because my intention is holy, because I make of myself a holy expression. Now you're cooking. You know what I mean? Like, that's for real, you know? And so, yeah, I don't know. I kind of lost where we were going there, but let's just start. And so we're going to enter a holy place. I'm going to read you a prayer that I made. I'm going to put this prayer down below so that you have a copy of it if you want to use it. But if you use it and you if you put it up somewhere, or if you paraphrase it, or if you like decide to use it, just credit where credit's due is one of the most important principles of transparency with creativity as a spiritual practice. Because when you are creating with others, when you're around others who are creating, when they're vulnerable with that creation, when they offer it to you as inspiration because they want to share the bounty of what they can channel, you do not desecrate that space, okay? You do not desecrate that space by using that offering of love as a way to step on someone's head and push them down. You do not take what you have been given and use it as your own to further your own agenda. Because when we don't operate to uplift everyone around us as we are lifted, because there's no harm and there's no hurt in saying, this is something that somebody taught me and it's really affecting me in this way, and I'm able to see this way because they gave it to me and I'm really, really grateful. But what I see with it is I see this whole other thing, and how it applies to my life is this whole other thing. That does not diminish your story. It makes you not a god, and it makes you not Princess Special, and it makes you not crazy. It makes you not insane. Because when you show up to the field of inspiration and creativity and you're like, I'm seeing this revelation is just mine. I do that with channeling, but I do that with channeling because this is channeled through, and you can tell that it's channeled through. And when I have a reference, when I have a person, when I know that someone else has worked on it, we talk about it. We talk about it in book study, to the extent that there are things that I can't always reference everything that is influencing me. Like if someone's bringing something in that's authentic, if someone this idea that art only exists, it's just recycled and we just make each other's art. It's how we do. That's that's patriarchy. I can get into that. But ultimately, okay, jazz is new. That's an authentic expression that came through soul. Hip hop is new. That's an authentic expression that came in through soul. That the novel and the new exists, but it exists in relationship to the expression of the soul. And so when it comes to someone's expression of their soul and your use of it, you use that like it's holy. You give reverence to where reverence is due, or else the spirit of creation, the spirit of inspiration that gave life to whatever that was will see you take what was given and misappropriate it or miscreate with it. And this is a spiritual practice. Spirit, the inspiration is spirit. Your inspiration is God. Inspiration is holy. When someone inspires you, you honor the divine in them as they honor the divine in you, as a part of what it is to communicate creativity and inspiration. So I say that because that's part of the ingredients, of what you are creating, is the motivation that you bring, and the way that you use your creative capacity and your creative power determines basically what you choose to channel. And if part of what you choose to channel is deception, then you become deception. And then you have to live as deception. And then you cannot see yourself even clearly. And then inspiration doesn't come readily because you have an external source for it, you're deceived about what creation even is. And so I say that, I don't even know why I say that. Oh, if you use this, okay, because I've had experiences with people, it's really painful and hurtful when it happens. If you use something that you get from someone else, the honorable thing to do, and the way to keep your creation holy, and the way to keep yourself free of the entanglements of don't be entangled with deception, and deception won't be entangled with you. To keep yourself free of those entanglements is to just create a net. I learned this from there. And then now I know this. So the now I know this is the you part. I learned this from there is honoring the divine feminine aspect of God, the community where you are born from, including ancestral practices. This is from my ancestors. We have a way of speaking that is so I, me, individualistic. There's no way to get a true channel when you're bringing that to the soup. And so we're going to do this prayer. We're going to enter into the sacred space. We're going to agree to honor each other in what it means to discuss this. Because again, when you go to create for yourself, you would love for the entire world to have a perspective where, we honor inspiration as something that is holy, and we honor the giver of life through that inspiration as something that is also holy. We honor the Father, the inspiration, and we honor the Mother, the giver of life, and in that way we participate in creation. We do not take inspiration for ourselves and dishonor the Mother, and we don't dishonor, you know, the inspiration. Like, there's a way in which I just want to not even go further with that, but you know what I mean. I'm going to learn how to prepare this better so it's not so rambly. But I want to enter into that sacred space. I'm going to post this down below. If you use it, credit it. Okay, now. My energy just went like, don't hurt me. Don't take from me. Don't do that. You know, and I think that that's an important thing to acknowledge, because that's essentially what people are saying when they open themselves up to you. And when you do that, when it comes time for you to truly open yourself up, you have this fear that that's going to happen to you because you participated in it. So again, like, all of the ways that we take ourselves out of what it means to have Holy Communion and access that holy channel, we are going to disavow those things, and now we are going to enter into that holy channel together. And so now let's together enter into this sacred space. I'm going to say a prayer. If you want to join me in prayer, that is wonderful. If you want to just observe the prayer, that is okay too. Here we go. So this is my invocation of the Divine Mother. And so one of the first things I want to say about your channel is you're going to get a ritual, get a prayer involved in what it means to enter into your sacred space with your creative practice. So this is mine. I'm invoking the divine feminine aspect of God, which is receptive of inspiration. Invocation of the Divine Mother. Take a deep breath. I am loved by my mother, and nothing anyone ever says or does can separate me from her love. I am not alone in this abyss. She will always find me. If they try to snuff me out, she will always return to revive me. Her name is Wisdom. Envy and tyranny seek to devour her into greed, but she cannot be present with those energies. She is not accessible if the energies of envy or tyranny or greed are present. Where they are, she is not. But where I am true, she is. Where I am still, she enters. Where I am tender, she speaks. Where I am honest, she sings. She is the breath in my lungs, the pulse in my hands, the fire in my belly, the silence behind my eyes. I call to her now. Let her light pour through me. Let her cleanse the house of my soul and anchor my body in her name. I remember who I am, her beloved child, her voice made form, her prayer made flesh. I walk with her. She walks with me. We are one. Now that we're in the sacred space, and I want you to understand that when we say a prayer like this, it's not really an appeal. Give me. If I offer you, then what will I get? It's not an exchange. At least for me, it's not. For me, it's that I understand that to ask divine inspiration, like God, the inspiration that is God, you know, that holy force in the field of consciousness that inspires all life to its consciousness, right? If I'm going to say, I want to interact with that, that's what I want to create with me, that is what I am intending to receive, then I have to know that I am then moving into that archetype of reception, of fertility, of the divine feminine aspect of I receive. I am open, I receive. Now, that's what this prayer is. The way that I'm able to receive is I can affirm I am loved by my mother. I am loved by creativity. I am loved by what fertility is, because my very words out of my mouth are the fertility that comes to me when I bring myself to this world and speak. And even if without the faculty of speech, the thought, you know, the idea, that is fertility. And so when I affirm that I am loved by my mother, I also affirm that I am fertile in receiving inspiration. I am worthy of receiving inspiration. That's the purpose the prayer serves, is affirming something in me, that when I say it out loud and when I connect with the truth of it, my belief is now engaged, and that belief is really, really powerful. And we're going to talk about why belief is really, really powerful. I'm loved by my mother means I am loved by creation, and I am loved by what it is to create, and I am loved by what it is to express with inspiration. When I'm given inspiration, what it is to express from that inspiration. nothing anyone says or does can separate me from her love means it's not about other people. It's not about the competition. It's not about the comparison. It's not about the points. It's not about the commercial success or the lack thereof. Like this, it's not about approval or disapproval. Expression, holy expression, creation. You are loved by creation. You're meant to create. That's end. Put the period at the end there. Nothing can separate you from that. Nothing can separate you from your creative capacity. Nothing can separate you from that desire to express, and then you have words bubbling out of your mouth. Nothing can separate you from the force of nature that brings life to your ideas when you bring them into the world with you, even if it's just sitting on a bench thinking, right? And so nothing's going to separate you from the love of creation. But what it means to participate with the love of creation is to honor that, like, you are loved, and that's kind of where we start. You know, when we look around at this world and we see all the crap and everyone sucks and like nobody's good, like that's not true. When we affirm that, we're agreeing with it. We're applying the power of belief to death and destruction. People deserve to die because they're no good. People deserve to just wallow in misery because look at the way that they are. That's contributing to a world where instead of saying, where is that person and that person who is worthy of life and worthy of what it is to have life nurtured with them and through them, not by you individually on some crazy salvation doctrine, because we get the salvation doctrine wrong like all the time, because it's not about you self-importanting or someone else self-importanting you in their life. What it is, and I do get a little defensive in here because I kind of like, you know, I do have trouble bringing this stuff through. It's so vulnerable and intrinsic to who I am. But when we go back to this, like, I'm not alone in the abyss. Basically, the abyss is death. And you're saying, I'm not going to give to death. I'm not going to expand with death. I'm not going to believe into death. I'm going to believe into life. So I'm not going to look out there and think nobody deserves what I have to offer. I'm not going to look out there and think that what I have to offer isn't safe. I'm not going to look out there and think that my creativity, my fertility, you know, is dependent on someone's acceptance or rejection of it. What I am going to do is praise. Authentic expression is praise. And so we enter this and we say, I'm not alone in the abyss because I have praise. I have praise. Praise moves through me. Praise is a part of my experience. Everything that inspires my perspective is praise. And I just have to move something out of the screen because there's extracting monsters everywhere that call. I had to get moving quotes, and now I have like 58 people harassing me, like trying to, please let me buy from you. And I understand the desperation and the need with jobs, but I kind of want to talk about, again, like when it comes down to spiritual practice and it comes down to magic and bringing that into your life, you know, like the mundane and the profane is the abyss, and we're not going to expand the abyss. Everyone's bothering me, so I can't do my work. We're going to flick it away. Goodbye. You don't hurt me. You can't hurt me. You can't hurt what I'm doing. So what we give power to, sometimes we give power to things that just don't deserve our power because we can flick it away. And right. And so like, we're not in the abyss. There's a creative capacity to say, I don't want to look at that. Go. There's an answer. You know what I mean? And so like, how we disempower things, how we empower ourselves. I'm not alone in the abyss. We keep on affirming these truths for ourselves as we enter into the creative space, and we do so with prayer. And so like, I'm showing you the technology of prayer, the use of prayer, like that moment of like, I'm going to go from the mundane and the profane into the sacred. Now, if you are a creator as an artist, if you want to be an artist, if you want to channel art, channeling good art, again, you know, this is a slow process of self-discovery and relaying meaning and wisdom and all that stuff. But as a spiritual practice, it starts with a good prayer, right? So you want to start utilizing a good prayer because that's going to influence what you're doing. Because it tells you, it sets your intentions for you, and these intentions are your ingredients. And there's intentions that you know about, and there's intentions that are like unconscious. So you're going to parse that out as you go. So to say I'm not alone in the abyss is saying creativity will, and it says, I am not alone in this abyss. She will always find me. If they try to snuff me out, she will always return to revive me. This little section is about no matter what, wisdom and creativity can find you. No matter what, if they try to snuff you out, she can come and revive you. Why? Her name is wisdom. Her name is wisdom. And wisdom is with those that she loves. All right. And so that's the practice you get there. Now, when I have here, envy and tyranny seek to devour her into greed. When you sit down and you can't create, it's because envy is playing, tyranny is playing, and greed is playing. And I'll tell you what that, and that's all with like conditioning in terms of like our social stuff. So like, again, if you're a professional creator, watch the loops of terror. They will destroy you. Okay. If your motivation is to hold a platform I mean, you want to make a living, right? You want to make a living doing your art, and that's totally important. But this is a holy and spiritual practice, which means that like you might have to sacrifice some level of commercial success for a genuine encounter. You know, and that genuine encounter has lasting power, and that genuine encounter moves at the pace of your own maturity, which means that you're not going to be a rising star at like 0 to 100. A divine energy is going to like pace you so that you have a good, like healthy, like integration of channeling information and then expressing it and then making your mundane and your profane, like, you know, this is a whole process. It's a slow process. So to think that like immediate success, like look at me, like that is literally not creativity as a spiritual practice. Like that's needing to feed the ego a steady diet of like you're winning the game, successfully, you know what I mean? And then again, we're stepping out of the profane and the mundane, you know, which is like this drive and this hard work, and we're stepping into a sacred space and we're saying, I'm communicating with God, I'm communicating with the divine as I understand it. And I'm gonna relay that divine inspiration through my experiences, and I'm gonna make meaning of my life in a way that is a gift, and that authentic expression is praise. It's a very specifically different motivation, because if you are a working artist, envy is other people are going to copy you, they're going to rip you off, they are going to literally like take what you made in like your holiest heart and your open expression of God and your vulnerable laying there exposed, and it's going to be a like grapey situation, right? Like that's what envy is going to do. Envy is either going to produce someone who wants to kill you and replace you with themselves, because that's what because they have that kind of a sickness, or envy also produces psychosexual obsession. And now I want to be careful with that, because we're going to talk about divination and how it intersects with like projection and transference, and how you want to watch for that, because that's a whole different thing. But what I mean in terms of like, you know, when you think about I want to create something, I want to bring to the world, you know, there's first a whole trial and error in terms of what it is to find your voice, because that's identity. Voice is identity. Affiliation is not identity. Voice is identity. And so when we think about like, you know, what stops you from creating, because, you know, the first thing that makes you want to create is that you're not alone in the abyss, and that you're seeking that authentic, like loving spiritual praise is going to hit the living in the land of the living, and then that life will express life back at you, and your life will expand and their lives will expand, you know. But so you create to not be alone in the abyss. You know that inspiration will find you, and you know that all of the voices that tell you that you're not good and that nothing can inspire you and there's no life left in you are going to be overcome by the voices that return to revive you. So you understand that life and death process. You actually trust the mother's inspiration there and her holding you. And so like, but her name is wisdom, right? And so wisdom is something that comes from the soul. Knowledge is something that you gather. You honor wisdom, you know, in a way that says this is wisdom. This is where it came from, you know. And when you gather knowledge, you honor wisdom, and then you get wisdom. If you honor wisdom, you'll get wisdom, right? And so what keeps you from wisdom? Again, it's like envy, trying to be somebody you're not, trying to do something that isn't you, seeing something that you want to be seen as, instead of trying to find yourself in what you're looking at and then stepping into it, like that expansion. So envy stops you from creating, and it stops other people from creating. It stops that divine aspect of God from flourishing, because the moment something's like, look what I made, someone's like, mine, you know, and that's what happens. And it happens over and over and over again. And so like what you want to understand, you know, that was a channeled moment. That's why it was, but what you want to understand is that like envy, is a sickness, right? And so it's going to poison your art. So you're not going to do that. And you're not going to actually spend time with watching other people do it. Okay, if you spend time looking at what other people are doing to disrespect you, you are feeding that disrespect. You're placing your belief in somebody else's ability to steal from you or hurt you, and that is not at all actually tangibly really possible. They can imitate you. They can play you on TV, but they still have. That's not you. That's never going to be you. And the sooner you understand that, the better your art's going to get, because you're never going to be creating in defense of, or creating and then defending. You are going to be connected to that divine force of like that channeling power, that divine force of nature that inspires at the level of like catharsis and charisma, right? So first you're going to recognize that these loops have no place in your creative process, either you doing it or you like fixating somebody else is doing it. You're going to get away from that. You're not going to bring that into your energy. You're not going to join your energy with its energy. You're not going to quantumly entangle with that bad news. Nor are you going to care about tyranny, because tyranny is going to be, I want to be seen like I'm being, I want to be seen like I want you to see me like I want to be seen. I don't want to be seen how you see me. I don't want you to look at me like that. I want you to look at me the way I want to be looked. I don't want you to think that about me. I want you to think about me the way I want you to think about me. I don't want you to do that with my work. I want you to do only these things with my work. I don't want you to do those things with my work. Tyranny steps up because we love what we create. It's our baby. And when we bring it in the world and somebody picks it up and they do something with it. So we create to be understood, and when we create and someone decides not to understand us, when they sit there and they're like, I'm gonna misunderstand you, and I'm gonna make a show of misunderstanding you, and you're gonna have to fight with it now. You know, that's taking you out of your creative process, out of that divine place, and it's putting you in this loop of defending yourself. You're seeing me wrong, this is how I want to see you. Because again, your identity is not how somebody else see you. Your identity is not in how somebody else is seeing you. And trying to be the you know, whether you are like there's oh god, it's so bad. We're such a bad place right now, culturally, socially. Legislating morality doesn't work. Legislating morality, whether it's believe what I believe or else, or legislating morality, you believe me in the way that I want to believe, you know, or like we have to watch that, because authenticity and identity is voice. What we affiliate with is something else. It's not our voice, and we don't want to make our voice enslaved to, bowing down to any affiliation, whether it's organized religion or whether it's some other dogma, because everything works like our brains are like, we organize around things. I don't know if you can hear that ice cream man. And I don't want to get into too much like what not to do, but I'm trying to help you know that when you sit down and you're ready to create, there are these forces of evil like that are destructive, that are against life being born through you, that are against the experience of your expansion in your life, that are against your growth. And the way that they show up is they have these weird loops. You know, somebody's going to steal it, and like, you can't see me, you can't do that with me, you know what I mean? And then we have greed, right? What's greed? Greed is you've gotten everybody to agree with you the way you want to be seen. Greed is you like everyone's envious of you, and it doesn't matter because you rise above, you know what I mean? Like, greed is, oh, now I'm going to hold this and I'm going to hoard it, and only those people can come near me because I'm this, and only I can give that, you know? And so like what you have in the way of creative power and creative expression is now behind so many firewalls that the only people who can get to you are those that can somehow like, it's like a funny thing. Like greed is about like not ever feeling like there's enough, always being driven to get more, holding on to as much as you can, not sharing with anybody, not sharing your resources, right? So that everybody has to go to you for whatever it is that you're selling, not sharing where you got things from, so that people feel like they have to pay you for something that's free. You know what I mean? Or like all the ways in which this happens, like we have to think about like giving life is expanding life in ourselves and others, taking life for ourselves from somebody else. You know what I mean? And like the reason this is here is because it's bullshit. Nobody can take from you. You know what I mean? And so when we start to like think about this stuff, when we start to obsess about this stuff, when we start to get crazy about what we're worth and what we're not worth, and they better see it the right way, there's also something to be said for being so abundant that everything that falls out of you, you know, it carries the fertility that you created with a force so fertile that like, so we want to get rid of that stuff, because right here it says, envy and tyranny seek to devour her into greed. So envy and tyranny seek to devour creativity into greed, so that they can have it for themselves and nobody can have that house can have it. Or this is my creativity and it looks like this, even though it's, you know, like all the stuff. This is what I'm saying is, I'm not pointing my finger at you and saying you're bad for doing this. I'm pointing my finger at you and saying like, this will fuck up your work. This will make your work bad. This will make this will poison your soup. This will make the ingredients sour. And it's because, creativity cannot be present with those energies. She won't do it. That's not that's not a fertile place for new life to grow. That will choke out new life. And so she's not accessible if the energies of envy or tyranny or greed are present. So creativity and wisdom is just not accessible in that environment. Where they are, she is not. And so when earlier we said, you know, well, what gets you in the door on that genuine experience of divine inspiration? You're not bringing any of these energies to what it means to encounter those, you know, and that. I'm not used to like looking at myself while I do this. I'm used to having like this nice veil where the cards like are hiding me. So like we're learning a little bit about like the nature of that inspiration, that channel that comes through. And again, we're learning about the nature of what that channel that is coming through because we are people in a spiritual practice looking for divine inspiration. And so like we create the conditions that divine inspiration can grow in. Fertility, seed, growth. So where is wisdom? Where is that divine channel? Where I am true, she is. Where I am still, she enters. Where I am tender, she speaks. Where I am honest, she sings. That's where she is. She's where you're honest. She's where you're tender. She's where you're still. And she's where you're true. That's where she is. That's where you can find her. That's where you can tune in and pick up to that channel. She's the breath in your lungs, like she is you. The pulse in your hand, she's the life that gives you life. Where did life come from? If it didn't come from you, good. That's all we need to know in the way of a spiritual belief. We don't actually have to take it further than that. We don't have to understand all the nuts and bolts of how the life that came to you. We just know life came to you. It's holy. We can pray. We can honor that. That's a God. That's God. And so the fire in your belly is like, it is there for as the ingredient that is going to be inspiring to you. It's already there. The silence behind your eyes is like when no one's looking, there's just like, that is you. When there's no performance. Okay. That's her. She's with you. And now here's where we call her forth. This is the invocation part. And so when spirituality as a creative practice in this way, catching that good, strong channel is first making yourself like the right kind of vessel. You're going to be the right environment for that seed to fall. And so now that you've cleared yourself out, you're not going to do envy, you're not going to do tyranny, you're not going to do greed. We'll talk about supremacy and deception another time because it doesn't really apply exactly here, and there's reasons. But you're going to now that you've cleared out, you're going to invoke her. You're going to call in wisdom. You are true, you are still, you are tender, you are honest, and you call her now. I call to her now. Let her light pour through me, her inspiration. Let her cleanse the house of my soul. Your soul is constantly picking up debris from people who want to influence you, want to sell you something you accidentally bought without realizing it, something that you listened to that caught your attention, that moved you, why did I bring that? Why did I do that? Like a loop, like, someone, doesn't like you. They say this, now you're defending yourself. You've got to off-charge that stuff. Let her cleanse the house of my soul and anchor my body in her name. Anchor my body, anchor my being in wisdom. Anchor my body and anchor my being into the channel, the connection with the divine aspect of myself that has already lived this life, that is the source of my life, and returns to the place where it came from, and that place that is eternal. Sacred space is it's an eternal perception. It breaks up the mundane, which is the day-to-day, the hour by hour, the year by year, the month by month. It breaks up the profane, which is like the stuff that intrudes on you, and you have to figure out how to make meaning of it so that it becomes definition instead of darkness. And it breaks up, it's that break in the path, and there's a good book for that, which I'll put somewhere a little. And again, like, this is sharing your resources. It's not being so immaculate about remembering where everything is. It's being immaculate about your intention, because the witness who witnesses you in a holy sort of situation with divine energy, you're witnessed. You know what I mean? And so you want to bring that right stuff. And there's reasons for everything, right? Now where am I going with this? We're looking at the prayer. I'm spastic. I'm just admitting it. Okay, so let her light pour through me. Now there isn't stuff in the way. Let her cleanse the house of my soul. This is gonna, that flow state cleanses you. It's a clearing. Anchor my body in her name. I want to be anchored in wisdom. I don't want to be anchored in mashugana and garbage. I don't want to be anchored in garbage. We know what we're getting nutrients from. Now this part I love. I remember who I am, her beloved child, her voice made form, her prayer made flesh. This is the most important part of the entire exercise, is getting to the point where you're like, okay, There are aspects of life, you know, and for me, I've broken it down into soul, sentience and soul, and the wisdom of the earth, the wisdom of the body, the languageless place, the underworld, everything, all the forms that came before that inform your expression of life. But sentience is everywhere that there is life, basically, because what gives it life is that sentience. But sentience and consciousness are two different things. And I think that when we think about the mother and we think about earth, we're thinking about sentience, and that channeled through one of my messages, and it really hit me as like very much it. And the consciousness, you know, is that's spirit. So spirit, consciousness, sentient soul. That's parents. Divine feminine aspect of God, sentient soul. Divine masculine aspect of God, consciousness. And what is created between them is the child of God. The child of God. The Christ, the Jesus, the child of God. I want to bring you into this. I'm burping a little bit. I think it's really, really important. And we're going to go through world religions when it comes to belief. We're going to go through influences of the unconscious landscape and how that manifested, and the world religion that you were born into, and why that is an important thing. But because we're going to go on a whole tangent with belief, we're going to spend a lot of time with belief. But when we think about a identity, like, and this is very similar to an identity in Christ. Because I do think it is similar, because we're going to talk about archetypal stories, and then we're going to talk about how those archetypal stories can work in different ways. And this idea of like an identity in what is holy, what is eternal. And when we think about what we talked about in terms of like I'll put this book, because this is about like, I don't know. But anyway, when we think about the profane, the mundane, and the sacred represents the eternal. It represents yourself identifying with an eternal self. And when you identify with an eternal self, that is wherever I came from, there's a place that is after I came from, and it is eternal. And that eternal place that I came from is holy, because I know that it brought me forth, and this life experience is holy, and life is holy. And so we connect these little dots, and we say, you know, the divine feminine aspect of God, which is sentience, soul, and the divine masculine aspect of God, which is consciousness, spirit, came into a relationship and created me. And therefore I am a divine expression of those two things as manifest on earth. So that inheritance, that truth of your divinity, that truth of the divinity of others, an understanding of consciousness that gives you an eternal perspective. I remember who I am. Can someone steal your work? No, I remember who I am. Can someone misinterpret you and make a show of it? It doesn't matter. I remember who I am. You know, there's so many things we're going to talk about with that, but that it's really important that when we go into that sacred space to create there, and we're going to make holy art, that we're like, okay, I'm not going to entertain that nonsense. I'm not going to have an argument playing in the back of my head, influencing what I pick up in the wave channel, because I remember who I am. And so what I bring to what I'm creating is in that memory of who I am. And that person, that being, that is a holy person, that is a holy being, that is a holy expression that I'm waiting to experience myself in that space of eternity. And so you bring that space of eternity into your space of the temporal, and then you make something, like you make new life with it. Right? So that's kind of like the nuts and bolts of the fertility of being receptive to divine energies, divine channels of wisdom, is first kind of having this sense of, you know, entering a sacred space with a prayer that you can actually believe. You have to believe that what you're doing makes sense. It has to be coherent for you to work as a spiritual practice. A lot of times we're given a belief and we have to adopt it, and it doesn't make any sense, and then we self-abandon in order to have the value of a spiritual thing, when that's like never it. It's never about the right or wrong belief, like ever. It's always about the use of belief in an appropriate way, and the use of a belief in an appropriate way is that you believe it, that it's true. And so when you run down all this stuff and you enter that sacred temple holy space, and then begin to create from it, it's because you've already sort of like established that you know who you are, and that you're actually connecting to something. You're not like, I'm going to connect to the gods, and it's going to be so great. And wait, is that a noise? I don't know. Oh my God, I felt something. I'm scared. You know, like that's different. And there's utility to that. We can talk about where that is. But this is not that. This is going with an intention of connecting with the divine energy. And the way that you do that is you're worthy. You know you're worthy. Why? Because you remember who you are. You're the beloved child of sentience and consciousness, soul and spirit. You're voice made form of those two energies. You are her prayer made flesh. You're something that is beyond this body, but you're animating this body. It's a prayer made flesh. It's like, oh, I know who I am. Now I know that I'm already connected to the divine. I can already pick up this current because it's already me. And so that knowledge is what you bring into the process of creating spiritually. I walk with her. She walks with me. We are one. Now, we are one is where we enter into this concept. The concepts around like Anima Mundi. We are one. We enter into like some really good technology about forgiveness. There's a lot that we can do with we are one, but I don't want to overwhelm you too much because this is going to be like a weekly occurrence. I'm going to come and I'm going to sit with you, and I want to stop channeling until I teach you how to channel, because I don't want you to look at me as the source of some kind of like God force. I want you to know that God force is in you, and that the access that I have, I'll just teach you how I do it. It's not some special thing, like all of this stuff I've developed. And therefore, listen, if tomorrow you show up on social media ready to teach the world how to do spirituality and you're just using the stuff that you learned here, do not do that. Okay, you're desecrating, a process of discovery for yourself, because this is going to go over a very long span of time. And once you have mastery with the material, here's the important thing about not changing yourself to churn that content right away, because I know that there's a financial need to do so, and any bit of inspiration is the food that feeds the process that pays your bills. So like, you can do that in a perverse way, in a destructive way, in a way that destroys something, or you can do that in a way that is life-giving, life-sharing, life-expanding, serving life. So, I put that warning at the beginning because we were going to be working with belief. We are going to be working with spiritual concepts. And I was really scared about, teaching magic a while back, and now I know why. A while back when I was like, oh, I'm going to teach how to do this. And I never really got there with Patreon. And like this last couple of weeks, like, I realized, like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Like, this needs to be done so carefully, or people will kill themselves with it. They will hurt themselves with this. This is dangerous stuff, because they're talking about that channel, that powerful channel, or learning how to channel powerfully. If you don't know what you're channeling, you don't know how to access the right channel, you can hurt yourself, you can hurt others. And so when I tell you that, like, I want you to take the inspiration that you get to create with, I mean it. But what I don't want you to do is appoint yourself the teacher at the head of the room when you have no mastery over the subject matter, because you will hurt yourself and you will hurt others. Okay? Why is that? Why is that important? Because I keep on coming back to it, because this is what scares me about doing this work. This is what scares me about sharing this stuff. This is what scares me about taking my life's work and allowing it to be something that, I am open and not greed about. Okay? Like, I have to overcome greed, and I have to overcome tyranny, and I have to overcome envy to do this work. And so this is what it looks like to grapple with that stuff transparently. And when it comes to this being a huge lecture series, it's going to like span quite kind of a while, and it's going to be really valuable, and you're going to be able to take everything that you learned in this lecture series, after you have learned how to apply it by week, with everything that you've learned. When you get that mastery with the same material that I'm offering you, you can teach a course, but from your learning curve, which you have to work to get. That's how you know where to put the X on the wall, and that's an example that came through someone's reading. So I think that's important for you, is you're asking for something beautiful and something good, and this is how we do it. And so when we think about the process of discovery, when we think about what it means to engage with the material, properly understand our limit in understanding what we don't understand yet, and understand that where we start and where we finish is going to be a totally different place. Where we start and where we finish with material is going to transform that material in your own experience and make an expression like in relationship to your process. And that's your gift to the world. Okay, your gift is not premature. You don't want to have the baby just abort. You know what I mean? You don't want to have the miscarriage, because the need to churn every piece of information that comes in until, please look, because we have addictions, and like, we're going to talk about addictions, I believe, because addictions are really strong forms of attachment, and then habits are also attachments, and how that plays out spiritually is really significant for your own like safety. Okay, so there's a lot that you're going to learn, so I don't want you to jump ahead and make mistakes. Okay, so when you think about creativity as a spiritual practice, this is what I'm giving you as a basis for entering into creativity as a spiritual practice. Now I will put this prayer up there. I'm gonna put this into written format as well, because I have it in written format. I have a book. The book is going to I'm like cagey about that announcement because I'm still tinkering with a lot of shit. Yeah, I'm going to put it into a written form. I'm not going to be afraid of tyranny, envy, or greed, right? And so we're going to leave it there. You know, this is my gift, and I'm trying to be as thorough as possible, and I hope that this is understandable. Lots of love to you. We're going to go into this lecture series. It is my hope and my intention that by the end of this lecture series, you are able to channel whatever form of art, your area of giftedness, your authentic voice, at a level that is expert, that is mastery, that is savant. You know, that's my hope. That's my hope. So let's do it. And I'm going to see you again soon.